Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Fun Fans Podcast. I'm your host, James Dillard, trying to kill a little time and let my co-host, Bailey Jackson, join us hopefully as soon as possible. But we're going to talk about a little sports superstition, and we may reveal how we've been helping the Tigers win, maybe, possibly. And we're going to talk about what happened this week in college football and a short discussion on the remaining tailgates this season. But first, have a different announcement. The Fanboys has completely merged with Greenville Sports Media. So the Fun Fans are a proud part of Greenville Sports Media's podcasting network. If you're a true sports fan, the Greenville Sports Media is perfect for you. Find various nationwide podcasts, the latest articles, and other sports media at greenvillesportsmedia.com, who can also be found on all forms of social media. The Greenville Sports Media. It's on all forms of social media, just like the Fun Fans. The Fun Fans podcast is the official podcast for Clemson fans. Also brought to you by Rubens. Food, sports, spirits, and catering, the best wings around with 2 locations in the upstate, 1083 Batesville Road in Greer and 11028 Anderson Road, Piedmont, South Carolina. Find them at rubensc.com. Rubens is simply a great place to eat for all sports fans. Went there after the game Saturday. The Fun Fans podcast is now also brought to you by Ivy O'Sullivan Healthcare. At Ivy O'Sullivan, they are more than just chiropractors. Since 1977, this family-owned business located in downtown Spartanburg has been helping people with techniques other than the typical twisting and popping that can sometimes make people nervous about trying a chiropractor. I've been a patient myself my entire life, and I take my own children there as well. If you have an ache or pain, give Ivy O'Sullivan Healthcare a try. And if you mention the Fun Fans podcast, they will donate 100% of your initial evaluation cost to their charity of the month. So call them at 864-583-3967. That's 864-583-3967, or find them at ivyosullivan.com to feel better and function at your best. Okay, so this show is about superstition, and we are not superstitious. At least I don't think so. We could probably be referred to as creatures of habit. Let's just say everyone knows the superstition that are tied to sports. This is my favorite cap, or I wore this pair of socks every time we won, or something like that. So, went to we do pretty much the same thing at the tailgate every time. So, but with the short game, we got there a little late, 12 o'clock. It was going to be a short time before kickoff. And I didn't, we hang banners. We hang banners to show we're Fun Fans Podcast, and we have a Rubens banner we hang on the tent if you hadn't seen our tailgate. But I didn't want to go through that trouble, let's just say, for the short tailgate time. And Bailey had mentioned something that we were doing the same thing every time. And I said, is that going to be okay if we don't hang the banners? And he said, yeah, well, it'll be all right. It'll be okay. Okay. So we didn't hang the banners. But then something even more important popped into my head later on during the tailgate. And I know if you've listened to the show a handful of times, even you've heard Bailey say that if there's one thing that I always bring to the tailgate, it's the oatmeal cream pies. I don't know what it is about oatmeal cream pies, but we started something that we have something sweet there for some people that was easy to grab, and it's something everybody would like. So it turned into oatmeal cream pie. So that's what I started bringing, and always brought oatmeal cream pies. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my goodness, and realized that I had forgotten the oatmeal cream pie. So it was at that point that I felt like Virginia might give us a run for our money. So I was really worried. But I'm not superstitious, but I never leave my TV volume on 13. So there's just kind of how that works out. But so what we learned through all this is the original item, and this is not nearly as effective without Bailey being here, but he pointed out yesterday that he's worn the same shirt to every game. So it's the shirt. We were wearing our layers because it was cold, and he had put on a long sleeve shirt under that shirt so he can wear the same shirt. So we're not superstitious, but maybe, just maybe, the shirt is helping Clemson come out with the victory. So definitely the shirt is undefeated. The tailgate is undefeated. And speaking of the tailgate, Bailey's wife, Jay, added some bling, the purple sequin skirts to the top. We look too fancy with the skirts on those high top tables as it was. And then now we got the purple sequin skirts. So that was and those things were glistening in the sun. It was something else. So if you can't, this is audio only, you got to go check this out and see these purple sequin skirts we got here. But anyway, so speaking of the game, Clemson beat Virginia. In my opinion, it was only close for the majority of the game because of the initial interception kind of early. So Clemson had to do a little bit, playing a little bit of comeback, obviously, but just basically took care of business. It was not that Virginia was a bad team. They're a pretty good team. They may very well be, other than Georgia, the best team we've played so far. There's definitely an argument for that. You wouldn't have thought that looking at the schedule, but that's how a lot of things have happened in college football this season. So Clemson definitely took care of business. It was not as close as the final score indicates. Honestly, Clemson was in control, about halfway through the second quarter, and then, knowing they were going to get the second half kickoff, and they came out and took care of business. Their 90-yard drive to open the second half, and that was pretty much all downhill for cruise control for the Tigers for the rest of the way, and nothing went Virginia's way for the rest of that game. But they the big play, in my opinion, the play of the game, loved it, thought it was great. The 4th and 1 touchdown pass. I had, I believe, 2 tight end positions running different depth, kind of go routes or whatever on 4th and 1. That was awesome. And that kind of turned the tide. I will point out one thing, though, speaking of touchdown passes. If you were at the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it was kind of a, sometimes we do a fun, not fun segment on the show. This was not a fun segment. This is not a fun thing for the Clemson fans. And it was right after the fourth quarter video. So everybody knows about the fourth quarter video, the hype video, and everybody's bouncing around, and the band has played, and they played the video, and they don't put rings on smooth hands and all this kind of stuff. And everybody's jumping and hooping and hollering. And then Virginia had the ball, and the very next play, they throw like a 45-yard touchdown pass. So it was definitely everybody off the hype train type situation. That was not cool at all, but it was okay. That wouldn't be funny if we would have lost the game for sure. But it was kind of just a funny, awkward situation being on the flip side of that one at the game. Speaking of tailgates, this is this year's schedule. We only have, it just hit me, we only have 3 home games left. So there's only 3 tailgates. We've started the second half of the season. All right. So Clemson's played 7 games there, and only got 5 left. So it's kind of like we're enjoying it. One thing we have on the podcast, we talk about enjoying college football, enjoying the season, and enjoying everything. So we got 3 more times to enjoy tailgating. If you're a tailgater, if you're a college football fan, make sure you're enjoying the season, because it's like you blink and it'll be gone. But looking forward to this postseason, which is going to be a little different than normal. But to get through any season, you got to have energy. Go to w.gg and a promo code FUNFANS for your 10% off of your Jitterless energy drink. That's w.gg and a promo code FUNFANS. All right, so speaking of postseason, here are the ACC standings. Since we are, we're a little more than halfway through the season, but what's interesting is there are 4 undefeated teams in the ACC, but Clemson is definitely in a driver's seat, but only because they've played 5 conference games. Miami, who is also undefeated overall, they've only played 3 conference games. They're 3-0 in the ACC, but they have 5 more games to potentially lose or win. Clemson only has 3 more games to potentially lose or win. Same thing with SMU. They've only played 3 conference games, so they have 5 games left on their schedule in the conference, whereas Clemson only has 3. So that's the kind of driving force that puts Clemson in the driver's seat. It's not saying that, really all 3 of those teams could be very well evenly matched. They're all, 7-0, 6-1, 6-1, pretty much running through people. Honestly, Miami's the one that has had the most trouble getting some of their victories when it comes to that standpoint. But the flip side is they also don't play each other. And nobody's talking about Pittsburgh because they only have 2 victories. So it's like they hadn't even started the ACC season yet. So they definitely have a road ahead of them to catch up in the conference. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We talked about the tiebreakers last week. And it could be interesting getting into these tiebreakers. So definitely Miami looked pretty good against Louisville this past Saturday, and that's who Clemson plays next in 2 weeks, Louisville. And they're a good team. They're a really good team. The one-loss teams down here, I don't want to say they're out of it, but once again, you got Duke, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and it's not just that they have 1 loss and there's 4 teams with no losses, but they've only played 3 ACC games, so they have a more road ahead of them as well. So, we'll see what happens with that. It would definitely be some kind of conundrum for any of the current 1-loss teams to step up. All right, now touching on the other conference, it's very interesting when you look at these. This is the Big 12. If you're doing audio only, so we're looking at the Big 12. BYU's in first place; they're 4-0. Iowa State's tied for first place, 4-0, and then Kansas State's 3-1, Texas Tech's 3-1, Cincinnati's 3-1, Colorado's 3-1. Same scenario. Now these teams different in this conference. What's different in this conference? They've all played 4 conference games. I don't know if this conference did that on purpose. Maybe they make it a point to keep everybody kind of on the same pace. Kind of makes sense, but it kind of don't matter. But at the same time, I'm not sure these are any of the teams that anybody thought was going to be at the top of this conference. I know I like Oklahoma State most years coming out of this conference. And now that they've had some teams come and other teams go, TCU used to be really good. But there was talk about Kansas State before the season started, but BYU and Iowa State, the Cyclones, seem to be in the driver's seat because they're all even matched and they are at the halfway point of their conference games. Iowa State barely got past Central Florida Saturday, so it could be interesting. The other thing about these conferences, these new conferences and no divisions is everybody don't play everybody. If we go back to the ACC, I'm sure I pointed that out, but the 3 teams that are at the top now undefeated, none of them play each other, Clemson, Miami, or SMU. So that could be some mess. All right, now the Big Ten. This is definitely not what people thought the Big Ten was going to look like, I believe. Indiana and Oregon at the top. 4-0, 4-0. And there's my man, Coach Jackson. How you doing, Coach Jackson?
I'm good, man. I've actually fell asleep. Can you believe it?
I believe it. Everybody needs a good nap every once in a while. So we're going through the conference standings. We talked about the ACC already. We talked about the Big 12, and we were just talking about the Big 10 standings. And you tell me, does this look like something that where people were predicting who would be at the top halfway through the season?
No, but it's a small sample size. But Indiana, that guy, what's his name? Kurt Signetti. Is he the coach at Indiana?
Yeah, they're legit.
Yeah, he was at James Madison, I think. And he told him, he said, you know what, we're going to win. We're going to win all the time. And nobody believed him, but hey, they're winning.
There they are. Yeah. And they're at the halfway point in this conference race. That these These the ones at the top at least all have 4 games in. Penn State only has 3, so they're a little behind, and they're still undefeated in the conference. So they got a little bit of catching up to do, but not too much. But yeah, Ohio State with that loss to Oregon, they're going to have to play their way back in to see what happens there. And then, of course, the mighty SEC with Texas A&M currently at the top here at the halfway point. Once again, most of these teams have played about an even number. You got 4, 3, 5, 4, and 3 as you go down the list. So they're kind of even with each other. Bailey, we talked about how in the ACC, Clemson has played 5 conference games already. And if you look at Pitt, they're undefeated, but they've only played 2. So you and I talked about that.
Right.
Those other schools have a way to go, but the other conferences are a little more balanced here at the halfway point. So, but yeah, who would have thought Texas A&M and LSU would be the 2 undefeateds, while the Georgias and the Tennessees and the Texas and the Alabamas, Alabama with 2 losses down there. It looks like Alabama's might be pretty much out of it. You never know.
I think I read something. This is the first time they've had 2 losses before November in like forever.
In a while. Yeah. In a long time. And speaking of, they had 2 premier games, and yeah, I'm going to pick on the SEC a little bit because they're supposed to be all that in a bowl of grits. One of the premier games, Tennessee and Alabama, was riddled with penalties. I think there were 26 total penalties in that game. So there's you some great football. And then it was a good game, but the Texas and Georgia game had the weirdest officiating call to, I believe, ever happened. Did you watch that game, Bailey?
Well, I did watch part. I was in and out. I had it on one TV, and I was just kind of, flipping back and forth. I didn't pay super close attention to it.
All right. Well, the pass interference call, which ultimately, and I think in everybody's opinion, they got right because it was not pass interference, but that's not a reviewable play. But what happened is it was so bad, the fans in Texas started throwing water bottles out onto the field.
Yeah, and there was a little delay, wasn't there? In it?
So there, and whether this it definitely caused a delay, but whether the delay is what caused
made them pick the flag up.
Yeah. I mean, were those guys going to talk about that call anyway? Maybe. But it gave them plenty of time to sit there and discuss that call, and I didn't go to replay because you can't. But the guy said, after further discussion, there was interference, and it was like, wow. So yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, go A&M. I'm pulling for A&M now to win this conference. We'll see. But supposedly it might help us if Georgia does well. Whatever. We'll see. I'm like you. As long as we keep winning, what other people do on our schedule
matters not. We help ourselves.
That's right. And one last thing about the ACC is our friends down in Columbia now, they got themselves a big win Saturday against the Sooners.
Yeah, I did a little research today on my Gamecock friends.
All right. What'd you come up with?
They think they're really good on defense and not good on offense.
Well, and I'm going to put this there, and I'm not knocking. I'm just saying that we're looking at the numbers. They're nowhere on this list. So they already have 3 conference losses. They got a big win Saturday, but they are – I don't even think they're in the conversation when it comes to an SEC championship. But what else did you find out?
They think we're worried about them.
Well,
I'm not going to sit. We are always worried about the Gamecocks.
Yeah,
because they're the big rival, and we wouldn't want to lose to them.
Correct.
I mean, what? But
right.
It's so much fun when they worry about you and what Clemson's doing way more than we worry about them.
Way more.
Anywho.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We take it one game at a time, baby.
Yeah, one game at a time.
Open U is up this week. We're gonna rock it. We're gonna win this one.
But I am one of those people. It don't hurt my feelings when they lose, of course. But I do not pull against the Gamecocks. I'm not one of those. I would love for them to win every game between now and the time they play us, and us we have to match. We need to win every game, and it could be two ranked teams coming into the Valley in November. That would be awesome. I want ESPN Game Day at the Clemson Carolina game. I would love to see that. And this is kind of a knock, but it's also true. Normally, it's the Gamecocks have too many losses for that to be a relevant game in the national spotlight. So, hey, bring it on. Let them keep winning, and then we'll play that one later. But we do have Open and then Louisville to worry about. All right. In other sports news, did you see Illinois make these leather helmets? This was in a celebration of the 100th anniversary of Red Grange's iconic 6-touchdown performance against the Michigan Wolverines. That's from BleacherReport.com. So they're playing Michigan, and they said that each one of these helmets took like 2 hours to paint, and it made them look like leather. If you're listening, doing audio only, you can't see it, but you've probably seen pictures. Did you see that, Bailey?
Yeah, I did see that. We actually, I think that was on. We stopped in Bowling Springs and ate some chicken wings last night. But you froze up on me for a second, so I couldn't hear the first part of that, but I did see those helmets.
Okay, so I was just pointing out they had the helmets. And yeah, once again, I point out to the listeners, I'm still dealing with no internet. So if we have some technical difficulties until my AT&T installer guy gets here on the 30th, we're just doing the best we can. So everybody loved the helmets. All right, and then this right here, this guy was hilarious. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So Friday night, when Florida State was playing Duke, Florida State fan, he got no shirt on. That's not part of the coaching outfit, but he's got the headphones and the Florida State hat, and he's looking at the laminated like the coaches do, and doggone if it's not a Waffle House menu. He did a great job, looking at it and patting, doing and pointing, and he was acting just like a coach does on the sidelines. And give the commentators some credit. I was watching at the particular time. Florida State they saw the guy and they were like, well, look, there's a coach in the stands. And they're like, well, Florida State's got like 3rd and 16, so I wonder what play he would call. And the other one said, well, it looks like the all-star special, because I believe in Waffle House menu he's looking at. So,
which is a solid choice of Waffle House. I mean, it includes waffles, eggs, a meat of your choice, and hash browns. I always substitute grits. But
yeah,
and probably toast. Like it's
probably toast
it's
too.
a solid choice.
Yeah, they don't call it the all-star for nothing.
Right.
So anyway, that you're talking about a fun fan. My man's having fun.
Mm-hmm. And they are 1-6 now, right?
Yeah, you got to do something this year with the FSU. All right, well, cool. A quick reminder that the Fanboys has 100% merged with Greenville Sports Media, so you can find our podcast on our Facebook, our YouTube, or at greenvillesportsmedia.com. And now that Bailey's here, we just want to go back real quick, Bailey. We were talking about the tailgate and being superstitious, and I just pointed out that your shirt is undefeated.
It is, and I don't know what I'm going to do if it gets really cold, but I'll figure it out.
I have to figure something out for sure, even though we're not superstitious. All right. Well, very good. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you're enjoying this college football season, because it seems to be flying by, but let's enjoy every game. Remember that superstitions are just for fun, maybe. Thanks again for checking us out each and every Sunday. Don't forget to click subscribe on the Fun Fans Podcast YouTube channel, as well as favorite podcast platform. Follow us on social media and share. Please reach out to become a sponsor. On behalf of the Fun Fans Podcast, Jay Thriller Entertainment, Greenville Sports Media, and Bailey Jackson.
Yeah, I feel like I should say we out, and I just got here. But I'm sorry, I fell asleep. I couldn't help it. I had dinner, and I took a little nap.
Hey, it's been a great weekend. You got to be well rested for being the Blue Eagle AD coming up tomorrow.
I agree.
All right. Thanks for listening.